All right, you guys, welcome back into another One Piece video. Today, we are here to talk about... What are we here to talk about? Oh, that's right! Chapter 1178! The chapter when Imu is finally leaving that damn flower room, brother! Let's go! So, you know how we like to do things here. We like to tackle the chapter chronologically. So before we could talk about Imu leaving the empty throne, we, of course, have to start with everybody's favorite pirate captain, Eustace Captain Kidd. Because Oda, or at least the reader who requested this cover, has not forgotten about him. We see Kidd running through the streets away from a charging bull, and it's a little bit unfortunate when you really think about it. Like, the first time we see Kidd back in the story, in quotation marks, he's running from a fight. It's also kind of ironic because the fighting bull is Kidd's animal representation as stated by Oda in an SBS. So I look at this cover page and I'm like, okay, this is a little bit silly, which I guess is the point. So on to the chapter now. First page, we see that Luffy in Gear 5th is hauling over Brook and Usopp's body to Nami, Jinbei, Frankie, and Sanji. And Frankie actually offers a helping hand to Luffy, saying, hey, do you need any assistance? Luffy, of course, says, no, Loki's about to go all out. It's best if you guys just stay back a little bit. Sanji's like, okay, that's rich coming from you, Luffy. And when I read that dialogue, I was taken aback a little bit, because how often in arcs in One Piece are the Straw Hats just straight chilling on the sidelines with nothing to do? Because usually, you know, they're over here fighting somebody, you know, they're dealing with a crazy situation. But nope, here on this battlefront, killing him has already been dealt with. The monsters have already been dealt with. Domi Reversi giants are almost done with. The fires are just the only real problem right now. And it's like, it's so nonchalant that they're willing to help Luffy in the final battle. Which, I will admit, as strange as it would have been to have Frankie helping Luffy and Loki against Imu, I kind of would have enjoyed it. Just to see more of Frankie's Super Mega Cola powers. And of course, if Frankie were to join, it would remind me a little bit of when Frankie helped Luffy fight Rob Lucci. Well, help should be in quotation marks there as well, because Frankie didn't really do any damage to Rob Lucci. But just seeing that Frankie was willing to swing out and assist Luffy is always kind of nice. So we cut back over to Imu and Loki. Loki is firing off Thunderheims left and right to attack Imu, and we see that Imu is just casually dodging each and every one of these blast attacks. And while they're doing it, they are monologuing. They are reminiscing on previous reports about how a giant was traveling in the mist, going around targeting world government ships. There are even reports of a giant beast that blotched out the sky. And it's just so funny, because it's like, yo, like, nobody knew it was Loki doing it. Loki just conveniently had mist surrounding his ship at all times. That's a little bit absurd. And it makes you wonder, if they didn't know that Loki was the one targeting WG ships this entire time, why does he have a special bounty of 2.6 billion berries? It must be because he's simply the Prince of Elbaph who's on the loose. That's my only real assumption, because it's like, yeah, they did not associate any of those crimes with Loki. So Loki's bounty was spurred by completely different reasons. So it kind of makes you wonder, now that Imu knows what Loki's all about, now that Imu knows Loki's devil fruit, will Loki's bounty skyrocket after Elbaph? I think so. Alongside Luffy, the Straw Hats, and everybody else surrounding these characters, yeah, I think we're in store for some massive bounty updates in the near future. One thing I'm kind of wondering about right now, but why did Loki simply linger in the shadows attacking world government ships for 8 years? Why did he never try to go up to the Holy Land and fight the God Knights and the Geoise? Is it because he knew he couldn't win? Is it because he couldn't find the red line? Or did he simply like these hit and run tactics? I am kind of curious about that. And also, how the hell is this fog everywhere? I know I mentioned that a second ago, but dude, is this Mist a paid actor or something? Like, showing up for Herald, sure, we're cool with that, right? It seemed like a one-off situation. But for Loki too? Like, when giants hit the open seas, does mist just spawn around them? Is it like a fart cloud or something? Like, there's no way mist is just always around Loki to the point where nobody knows who the hell he is. That's crazy, man. For 8 years? Absurd. So, after Imu is done dialoguing, we see that Luffy has finally shown back up to the battlefield, and just as he's about to wall up Gunko-Imu, Imu bursts out of Gunko's stomach, very similar to what we saw with Saturn at God Valley, and Imu, up in the sky, shoots out his tentacles towards Luffy and Loki, and attempts to use Domi Reversi. What's interesting about this Domi Reversi is that unlike what they did to Rocksteady Zebek and even Dorian Brogy, we see that the tentacles go through the magic circles, which is a brand new detail. I wonder why they had to do that. Like for Rox, there was no magic circle. For Brogy, the magic circle popped up on the ground and then later flipped him. So it's like, yeah, I wonder what the difference is between all of this, or if there's no difference and it's simply flavor text. We see that Imu's contract on Luffy and Loki is slightly different than the one they gave to Dorian Brogy and even Rocksteady Zebek. Because this time around, Imu wants Luffy and Loki to actually battle each other. He says that in exchange for a fixed amount of thy lifespan, I shall grant thee greater powers. Turn on each other and hate each other. Luffy and Loki simply stare blankly at Imu, and nothing happens. Domi Reversi has failed. Loki simply waves off the tentacles. Luffy starts kicking them away, and they're like, yo, this is annoying. This doesn't even hurt. What is this thing? Imu has an inner thought saying, yes. Of course, as expected, it did not work. These two are ... And before Imu can finish that thought, Luffy uses Dawn Gatling, and Loki transforms back to his base form, and he uses Squirrelnir to freeze Imu. And it makes sense, you know, obviously Luffy, Loki, they don't care, they don't know what the hell's going on, and plus Imu is having an inner monologue here, so they can't even see that Imu's about to explain everything, but from the audience perspective, I'm like, no! Luffy, Loki, please let him finish his thoughts, man! Because we're so curious, brother. How does Domi Reversi work? Who can it not work on? We were so close to getting an answer. And, you know, it goes back to, like, all the original theories about Domi Reversi. Like, oh, it should work on you if you're in your homeland, but maybe it won't work on you if you have a devil fruit. Maybe it's something that has to do with what happened during the Void Century. We have no idea. And Imu was this close to giving us just a snippet of information about Domi Reversi's mechanics. If I had to take a stab at it, I'd say that the reason it doesn't work is because of the devil fruits. Like, because we know that Zoans have a will of their own, maybe the demon can't enter their bodies because there's already a demon inside of them, aka the devil fruits. That is my assumption right now. It could be totally wrong come later, but yeah, I feel like that's like the most logical route for me. And I just gotta say this real quick, but I am really glad that Imu tried to use Domi Reversi here, even if it didn't work. And I've seen people clowning on Imu for this, saying, oh, why did Imu try to use Domi Reversi if he knew it wouldn't work? Well, he theorized that it wouldn't work, but let's be real, if there was like a 1% chance that Domi Reversi was effective, and he could perform it at no cost to himself because he can obviously regenerate and tank every blow known to mankind, why not try it? You know, like, let's be real, he has nothing to lose from using Domi Reversi, and instead, he has everything to gain. Like, let's say it did work on the 1% chance. Then boom, the fight's over. So yes, I do not blame Imu for trying, even though they already kind of knew that it wouldn't work. And also, a meta reason why I'm glad Imu tried to attempt this was because if he didn't, then you know a lot of people in the back of their minds would be saying, oh, is it going to happen next chapter, the chapter afterwards? Why didn't Imu use it? Did Imu forget they had this ability? Like, the theories would go on and on and on and on. So I am glad that Oda checked off this box for us. And yeah, you know, we're coming hot off the heels of so many characters getting Domi Reversi'd that a lot of people thought that Loki was going to get turned. That was a very hot theory a couple days back. And here we have it. That idea didn't actually pan out. And I will admit, I am happy it did not happen. I know that sounds crazy, but I mean, here's the thing, right? When it comes to Domi Reversi Loki, I was never a big fan of it because I feel like it would be a really cheap way to win the battle. I get it, right? Last chapter, Imu said, oh, you know, a true leader never sullies their hand. This would just be them playing more into that role. But at the same time, Luffy versus Loki would just feel a little bit like a time waster. especially since Chopper could realistically run over here and just one-tap Loki back into his normal form. And plus, we finally have Imu front and center right here. I want them to fight instead. You know, I would much rather have the boys fight Imu than Luffy and everybody else fighting Loki. I feel like it's more entertaining to me this way. You can disagree with that. That's totally fine. That's more like a personal opinion. But yeah, I am really happy this did not work. Now, I just want to know why it didn't work, right? What were the stipulations behind this, brother? So, we see, of course, Loki uses Niflheim, and he turns Imu into a giant block of ice. Dude, Ragnar doesn't even have to make contact with Imu for it to actually freeze him. He simply hit the air around Imu, and then boom, giant ice block. Kinda broken, man. Also, I will say this, but it's really cool seeing Ragnar as this hybrid squirrel hammer thing. It starts squeaking, it does the kudididi sound. It's super goofy, brother. One pretty cool thing about this whole sequence here is that this is the first time that Loki has actually called Luffy by his name. You know, beforehand, Loki was making up little nicknames for Luffy, or just said, hey, you. But here, Loki says, hey, Luffy, dodge, get out of the way. And it's like, damn, you can see the friendship blossoming on the battlefield right before our very eyes. So now that Gunko-Imu has been frozen in this block of ice, the boys take a breather. Luffy is out of his Gear 5th form, and he is now exhausted as an old man, and Loki is back in his base form, and he is huffing and puffing as well. It looks like being in his Nidhogg form actually takes a lot of stamina out of him, which does make sense given the size of it, and I wonder if we'll ever see Hybrid Loki in this arc. I'm assuming we will, because Loki, multiple times in this chapter, I think twice, which multiple times, twice, whatever, he does say that Imu is so small compared to his dragon form that he's constantly losing sight of him. That is the main reason why he goes back into base form and uses Ragnar, because Imu is just so damn small. So yeah, size is an issue here. Loki has to downsize himself to fight efficiently. One thing that I thought was really fascinating is that when Luffy leaves his Gear 5th form, his Elbaph clothing comes back. Yeah, the helmet, the axe, the cape, the belt buckle, it all comes back. So when he goes Gear 5th, he has his regular clothes on, but when he's out of Gear 5th, he has his Elbaph fit on. And I know people are saying, oh, you know, he's the most free in those clothes, he likes it. True, but the thing is that we saw the Elbaph fit merge with Gear 5th during the Skopper Gaban fight. So it's like, damn, man, like maybe he just tried it once or twice and he said, you know what? I don't like this. You know, I don't like this fit. Let me just save it for when I'm out of Gear 5th. Maybe that's it, but yeah, I feel like this should be an SBS question. Like, hey, Oda, why didn't Luffy use his Elbaph attire when fighting Imu? Is it really a thing about freedom? Are the clothes too restrictive? Does Luffy not like the horns or something? I kind of hope somebody asks Oda that, man. So now, we cut over and we jump around from place to place in Elbaph, and we see that pretty much all the threats have been dealt with. All that's left to deal with is the fire, which is being put out easy peasy. The firefighters are working their hardest. Nami is using Zeus. Lilith is using the ODC, which is running out of battery. And Jinbei is doing what he does best, and he's using the sea clouds to help put out the fires too. Man, even in these little filler panels, Jinbei cannot catch a break. We see that the Giants are talking about Loki, saying, oh, like, have you heard? Loki didn't kill King Harold. I kind of feel bad for blaming him. But also, even though he's innocent, look at what the hell he's doing here, man. These wildfires are freaking crazy. Which I will admit was pretty funny. Like, no matter what happens, man, Loki's always gonna catch some sort of flack. We then cut over to the Owl Library. Robin and Saul arrive inside the library, and they see that all the books have been successfully evacuated. Saul is like, yo, not a single burnt book is here. The library was on fire for quite some time. But would you look at that? Everything is missing, and so is the owl. And of course, they do suspect that Biblo had a role to play in this. And now I'm just kind of wondering, man, but how the hell did Biblo carry all those books out of the library? So to our knowledge, Biblo has the Iku Iku no Mi, the Grow Grow no Mi. But we gotta remember, that is only a Vegapunk theory. It is not confirmed yet. Oda could always do a switcheroo and say, oh, Biblo actually has this ability, and what Vegapunk said earlier was simply a good guess. But even with the Iku Iku no Mi, since they can enlarge books, perhaps they could also shrink books down to their original size. Like maybe they deactivate their abilities, and since they're so big, they simply swept it all into their wings and flew away. So now the main question really just becomes, where did Biblo go? Are they still in Elbaph with all the books? Did they go up to the Heaven Realm? Did they perhaps go to the very next island? We have no idea. Hopefully we do see Biblo soon though, because I do think that they are going to be a wealth of information here in Elbaph. I mean, dude, we gotta remember, this owl is centuries old. They came with the library. So yeah, I feel like this owl is more than meets the eye. I know this is gonna sound crazy, but I'm sure you guys have heard the theory before. But there's even a good chance that this owl knew Joy Boy or was one of Joy Boy's companions or allies. Like, that's the thing, man. With great age comes a great role in the story. Also, I heard a meme floating around online that this is the second time these books, the books of Ohara, have had a fake out death, and I couldn't stop laughing about that. And also, if you guys are wondering how we could even converse with this owl in the first place, easy answer is Chopper. I mean, Chopper can speak to pretty much any animal out there in the world, so Chopper and Biblo having a conversation, I feel like that's going to be a thing. If anything, I am still very shocked that Chopper did not talk to the owl while he was in there reading medicinal books. Like, literally, the owl was right up there behind Chopper. Chopper was reading, and I'm like, guys, talk to each other. You're right there. Come on, come on. It was kind of crazy, man. But yeah, I mean, even with this owl, right? If Chopper's Devil Fruit is something special, like last week, we were all theorizing the Forest God or the All-Cure Devil Fruit or just something absurd. If Chopper does have a special fruit, perhaps this owl will be the one to tell us. Because they're so wise and because they have so much knowledge under their wings, maybe they can explain Domi Reversi, Chopper's fruit, or maybe even they know Imu, which would be pretty crazy. But again, with great age comes a great role in the story. So now we cut over to Sanji, Frankie, and Killingham, and Sanji once again mentions how easy this all was. Sanji's like, yo, like after we started fighting back, things ended pretty quickly, right? That's when Frankie butts in and he says, it's not like we're fighting the entire organization. These are just 3 of the Holy Knights. This isn't an all-out war. And it does remind me of last week where Sanji was like, hey, like, are these really the Holy Knights that protect Marie Joie? And then Frankie's like, hey, Sanji, we're just a Yonko crew now, man. We're too strong. Come on. It's like they're both right. And we gotta remember, Oda is writing both of these dialogue boxes. So I am just wondering, where's Oda going with this? Is Sanji going to be correct in that this was all too easy? Or are we really just those guys? And is this arc not going to have a big battle? I do wonder. Shout out to Killingham. While this whole conversation's going on, Killingham, it looks like they gagged him with wood. And he's like, Imu-sama, what happened to you? Where are you? And it's like, damn, poor Killingham, man. I wonder what the Straw Hats are going to do with them. Like, we're assuming Imu is going to come back to Elbaph and run the gauntlet one more time. You know, help the God Knights up a little bit, maybe buff them up, and then we can have, like, Elbaph 2.0 go down. But if that doesn't happen, is Killingham just forever going to be a Straw Hat hostage? Are we going to carry him around like Buggy in the One Piece live action? And then same with Saint Sommers. Are we going to put him in jail? Like, what's going to come out of these God Knights being here alone? I wonder if they can just simply undo the Abyss Circle and go back to Marie Joie, or if somebody at Marie Joie can simply summon them back using like a summoning jutsu, like how Gunko brought them over to Elbaph. Could they do the reverse and bring them back home? I like to imagine so. So we go on now, and the next thing we see is the battle between Zoro's group versus the Domi Reversi Giants. There's only a couple of them left, and we see that before Zoro can go in and finish the job entirely, Chopper shows up, slaps the 2 last giants. We see that the shadow demon spirit thing jumps out of their body. They flip into the ground, and wouldn't you know it, but Domi Reversi has been fully eradicated. Zoro is like, hey, Chopper, how the hell did you do that? Chopper says, I have no idea, but look, it's all over now. And Zoro's theory is that Chopper is simply a great doctor. And one of the giants also says, oh, if that's the case, it must be true then. And it's like, yo, that is not it. I mean, maybe it's a hint, you know, maybe it goes back to like the all cure forest god theory where Chopper's devil fruit actually does make him a great doctor. But it's just funny hearing Zoro's simple reasoning. And it reminds me of like last week how some people were like, oh, you know, Chopper cooked up a cure. And it's like, guys, Chopper doesn't even know what he's doing, man. You know, Chopper is just as clueless as all of us. And, you know, we should have expected this. There's no way Odo's going to explain how Chopper's doing it ASAP. But hopefully we do get the explanation soon. I am still putting my chips down on Forest God. I feel like that makes the most sense. With Forest God and All Cure kind of being the same thing, like maybe the Forest God just specialized in taming demons and curing diseases, I think that would be pretty damn fitting. So now we cut on over to another God Knight. We see Saint Sommers. He is jumping around on the ground, trying to reattach his head. And we see that alongside Saint Sommers' head is his heart. And this heart isn't normal. It is mechanical. It is artificial. What the hell is going on here? What is that? It's tough, man. You know, I look at this and I'm like, okay, maybe this is why the God Knights are immortal. Maybe this right here is their weak spot. It's kind of like in Resident Evil where you fight this giant crazy T-virus zombie and then all of a sudden they have like this giant orange circle in their heart. It's like, okay, just shoot that and they're dead. Maybe that's it. You know, maybe this is going to be the key way to defeat an immortal opponent if you do not have Conqueror's Haki. You simply go for the heart. That looks like a weak spot. But the thing is that I don't think immortality comes from the heart. Because from what we know, immortality is granted to the God Knights by Imu. It comes from the Mark of the Abyss. And it's like, yo, like when you get the Mark of the Abyss, does it turn your heart into this too? Or is this like a separate thing? I'm not too sure. If I had to put one thing down on this heart though, I will say that whatever it is, it definitely stems from the Void Century. You know, it does look mechanical in my opinion. And we have to remember that during the Void Century, there existed technology that transcended Vegapunk's tech. This right here looks just like that in my opinion. So yeah, what are the machinations behind this heart? What kind of weakness will this end up being? I have no clue. You know, while I said that maybe all the God Knights have mechanical hearts, it's like, yo, like we saw King Harold get the Mark of the Abyss and nothing weird happened with his chest. He was simply grabbing his arm and saying that that hurt. I mean, maybe this is going to be a thing that only Saint Sommers has, but even that feels a little bit odd. Like, why would Saint Sommers, out of everybody, just have the one mechanical heart amongst the God Knights? Maybe this heart doesn't have to do with their regeneration, but maybe this heart is what stops them from aging. Because the immortality and regen is a little bit different from the anti-aging properties, right? So maybe this heart is what keeps them young and immortal, and then the regen powers simply come from Imu. And when you compile them together, then you have like this infinite army, essentially. Maybe that's it too. But yeah, it's very odd. You know, after going through this chapter multiple times, this heart right here is what I am most hung up on. Speaking of hearts, I do think back to the Heart Pirates alongside Law, because it's like, yo, dude, if only Law were here, maybe he could like dissect all the hearts of the God Knights and we could see what the hell is going down. But even though we don't have Law here on this island, we do have the next best thing, if not the best thing, which is the Lilith Vegapunk. If Imu does not come back, and if we do capture Saint Sommers, I bet you Lilith would be able to figure out what the hell this thing is. 100%. Maybe even Frankie or Chopper too. Would that actually be kind of cruel though? No. Saint Sommers is way worse, right? I don't think anybody would complain if we simply dissected this guy, you know, played around with his heart just to see what the hell is going down. Like, what are we fighting, guys? What is up with this man? So now we cut back over to Luffy and Loki. They're both exhausted. Luffy is asking for food. Loki says, hey, go to the village yourself and get it. I have no food on me. So Luffy's like, hey, Ragnar, can you get it for me instead? Pretty funny stuff. But of course, in the background, we see that Imu, who is currently trapped in the block of ice slowly dissipates, leaving behind Gunko's body. Pretty big stuff. I do wonder if now that Imu is gone, we can finally have a nice one-on-one conversation between Gunko and Brook. Like maybe they turn around, they're like, hey, Imu's gone, Brook's here, okay, let's let her go. Or maybe they like unfreeze half of the block, which would be kind of funny, right? So you just have like Gunko's upper torso talking to Brook just to be safe. I think that would make a lot of sense, but it does hinge on whether or not Luffy and Loki knows that Imu is no longer a part of Gunko anymore. Like, do they realize with their observation haki that this crazy dark spirit is now gone, or do they think that they're still in there somewhere? Which, seeing how quickly Imu was able to possess Gunko, maybe I wouldn't thaw them out. Yeah, that'd be a little bit dangerous. Maybe not. Maybe we save the Gunko conversation for later. We'll see, we'll see. So, Imu, now that they've left Gunko's body, they are officially back at the Holy Land, and we get another outside shot of Pangea Castle, of Marie-Joie, and we see that there are indeed burnt down and broken buildings in the background, which is very different from what we saw 3 chapters ago. 3 chapters ago, when we last saw Pangea Castle, the buildings on the outskirts of it were completely fine. What the hell is going on here? You know, it could be one of those things where maybe it was just one of those bad shots where, oh, you know, like this is a weird angle. These buildings are good, but these aren't. Maybe that's it. Maybe, you know, there's some weird time dilation thing going on. Maybe the fighting is still going on and those buildings just recently got destroyed in the last 2 chapters. Or it's just an Oda mistake. Which I know sounds crazy, but here's the thing. Here in Elbaph alone, there have been a myriad of inconsistencies and or problems that do get fixed when the official physical volume releases. You know, mistakes happen all the time that could have just been one-off mistake, especially since it was a very small panel. It's just really hard to tell, and it kind of sucks, because if it is a mistake, it's like, yo, we've been theorizing on what the hell's going on because of that one panel for weeks now, and now learning that it might be a mistake, it's like, ah, damn. What can we even trust anymore, man? I can't even trust my eyes. But yeah, you know, I think this will be the talk of the town. Who attacked Marie-Joie? Were they successful? Did they fail? Who stopped them? Did Shamrock put in the work? Did the Geoise have to go out? That is the $1 million question. I think we will learn pretty soon. It would be nice if next chapter was actually just a Marie-Joie chapter. Like, imagine that, right? We see the Geoise's perspective, Shamrock's perspective. That would be fire. But would Oda actually do it? That is the $1 million question, right? Would Oda actually show us what went down? I think we will eventually, but next chapter, that might be asking for too much. One really cool detail about that last page, though, is the fact that Pangea Castle is completely unscathed. While the buildings around it are destroyed, whoever was attacking Marie-Joie did not make it to the final bunker, which I think is fascinating. Of course, there is still a chance that they're currently attacking still, but I don't think so. I feel like if they were still attacking, we'd see, like, you know, sound effects in the air. I think we'd see buildings still being burned down. But to me, at least, based off of these last couple of panels, it looks like the fighting has subsided. And it kind of makes you wonder, how long did this raid actually go down for? Because Imu, well, yes, you know, they spawned in like 10, 15 chapters ago. At the same time, it's like, wait a minute. In reality, maybe only 30 minutes passed? So it goes back to time dilation. It's like, wait, how crazy was time dilation here? Did it actually work? Is that still a thing? Who really knows, right? That is still a big theory floating around Elbaph right now that hasn't really been tackled yet. So, we see that Imu calls up the Geoise via Denden Mushi, and he tells them that he's gonna vacate the empty throne for a while. He's leaving the Holy Land for a short bit. Where's he going? I've heard a lot of theories about Imu going to other places, but in my opinion, I just feel like Imu's going to Elbaph. I mean, he told Luffy and Loki last chapter that this battle will split the world. It will divide the world. And then we cut over to this chapter and we see the battle, and it's not even really a fight. You know, Imu lands no blows on them whatsoever. He tries to use Domi Reversi. He gets frozen, and then boom. Thus concludes the battle that will split the world. I don't think that's it. You know, just like what Sanji said in this chapter, it ended too soon. I think Imu is going to spawn an Elbaph next chapter, and he's going to run it back with their real body. I do think Imu was nerfed while in Gunko's body, so now the real deal is coming by. And I just kind of wonder, but how is this all going to pan out? You know, because at least for Gunko, we could all see ways where Imu gets sent home and or defeated. It's like, oh, you know, Gunko's body's not great to fight in. You know, maybe they sever the connection. Maybe Gunko forces him out. But now that the real Imu is stopping by, it's like, yo, like, how are we going to win? You know, if the big bad villain is stopping by, what's going to happen now? And my main thing, one thing I am hung up on, is what Imu says in that final panel. He says, I will only leave for a little bit. I think there's going to be a time limit on Imu. You know, going back to all the theories surrounding Imu, one prominent one is that Imu could not leave Pangaea Castle. But here in this chapter, we see that they actually can leave the Holy Land. So what I think is happening here is that Imu can freely leave, but they are under some sort of time constraint. Them saying they can only leave for a little bit is probably because they can't leave the flower room for too long. And, you know, it goes back to one thing that Oda loves to do time and time again in every single arc, but Oda loves his countdowns. I think Imu, when they arrive in Elbaph, it's gonna be like Albert Wesker in Resident Evil 5, where he's like, 7 minutes. I got 7 minutes to play with you. It might be like that, where Imu's like, okay, I got 3 minutes. 3 minutes to beat Loki and Luffy and bring Elbaph to its knees. And then we simply have to survive the onslaught. I think that's what might be happening here. Of course, just a theory. I could be wrong next chapter, but that's where I'm at right now. As far as Imu going anywhere else, I can't really imagine it. You know, I've seen people saying that Imu could go to the next island and meet us there, but it's like, well, why would he do that when he knows exactly where we are? And there's an abyss circle literally in Elbaph that Imu could teleport to. And, you know, Imu going just to a different island entirely, it's like there was no build-up there. Unless it relates to the people who just attacked Marie Joie, then that's fine. But I just feel like Elbaph is the most logical route right now. One small detail that I thought was pretty interesting too is that in that second to last panel where you see Imu in the flower room, you can actually see somebody kneeling on the side of that panel. And it kind of makes you wonder who that is. Is that another God Knight? Is it Imu's personal attendant who isn't a God Knight? I don't know. I just thought that was very odd, right? Like, there's always just somebody kneeling in Imu's room. So, last thing to talk about, but the God Knights themselves. They look pretty bad. You know, needless to say, Sommers killing him, they were dealt with very easily. But now that Imu, the head honcho, the real body of Imu, is coming to Elbaph, will they get a buff? It goes back to what Shanks said, right? When you get the Mark of the Abyss, if you have tier 1, Imu can control you if you're nearby him. With the tier 2 contract, he can control you anywhere in the world. From that description, it sounds like the closer you are to Imu, regardless of the contract level, the stronger you get. So since all of their powers stem from Imu, I am expecting some sort of buff if the real Imu shows up on Elbaph. I think they will get something out of it. It's kind of like what Killingham said, right? Underestimate us while you can. Imu-sama, where are you? What's happening to you? Yeah, I do think we are going to get another round here at Elbaph. I don't think it's going to last for too long. Again, I do think there will be some sort of time constraint here, but we'll definitely see about that. And one last thing I do want to leave off on, but since the real body is potentially coming to Elbaph, is there a chance that we will finally be able to see what Imu really looks like underneath the black? I do still think they're going to be like this weird shadow monster. I think what we see right here is the real Imu, but underneath it, I feel like there is going to be a face. Like, it could be like an Obito situation in Naruto, where they have the mask on all the time, and then boom, after you land a really good blow on it, you start to see some of their face. I think that would be really freaking cool. Like, imagine Luffy lands a really nice Gear 5th attack. You know, Loki just slams down with Ragnar, and then boom, the shadow starts cracking. I think that would be so fire, but again, that's simply a theory. Let me know what do you guys think about this chapter down below. Of course, we'll be coming back in the next couple of days and reading through the comment section. So if you want your comment read, make sure to drop it down there. Giving you guys like a thumbs down. Okay, down there. Yeah. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching this video all the way until the end. I really freaking appreciate it. And I'll catch you guys next time. Peace out and stay safe.